So in this video, we'll be showing you how to use the new ODATA Advanced Reporting API with ALM, and we'll be doing an example here with Microsoft Excel. So the benefit of using the ODATA API is that you can access and consume the data from your ALM repository and your projects without having to go into ALM, without having to, let's say, create and connect to business queries. And it gives you a lot more flexibility, especially if you intend to maybe also use these for Power BI, because Excel and Power BI share some of the same features and technology when we come down to creating reports like these. So before you begin, you'll have to set yourself up for this. Before you do anything in Excel, you have to create an API key. The API key lets you connect to ALM and specifically with the OData enabled for that API key. Here, let me show what I mean. So here I've got the ALM site administration. This is something your site admin would have to do for you. They would log into the site administration and they would sign in and create an API key for you. So under users, API key management, they would create an API key. Now it's important that they enable the OData. Without that, it won't have permissions to do use the API. And also the OData has to be enabled in the configuration parameters. I think it's down here somewhere. Enable OData. Yeah, is OData service enabled? So that has to be added or set to yes in order for this to be opened. So once you have that, now as a user, you're ready to begin. I have done this a couple times in Excel practicing before I did this video, so some of my credentials are already saved here, but I'll explain the process to you. So the first thing we need to do is to create a connection to ALM from Excel on the OData API. So to do that, open up a new spreadsheet, go to the Data tab, and go to the Get Data dropdown, and choose Other Sources from OData Feed. You'll be prompted for a URL. The URL comes in a very specific format, and you can see it's in the documentation, so you can look it up as well. Basically, the server name, then this path, which is the OData API path, and then your domain and your project. Okay, so once you have that, if this is the first time you do it, then you'll get a second screen asking for your credentials. So that's where you're going to put in your API key and your the secret, and then it will get to this screen. So now that we have this screen, this tells me that I'm connected to ALM and I can now start building queries. So let's do a very simple example on the defects table. Now you can choose one or more tables to bring into the editor, but we'll start with a very simple example with defects only. So by selecting defects, I can see a preview of the data that I'm about to fetch. And I can either load the data entirely into my spreadsheet, or I can build a query. I prefer to build the query because I don't need all the columns and data necessarily. So I'm going to click on Transform Data, and when it comes up, it will bring up the Power Query Editor. Now, the great thing about this is that this is the same editor, same functionality, same capabilities as you have in Power BI. We can take whatever we have here, get it working in Excel, and then build it in Power BI desktop and so forth. Or you can work in Power BI, it'll work the same way. We're going to do a video on Power BI walking through the same steps so you can sort of see the similarities and the differences. So here I have my basic query, one table, no filters, no sorting, nothing. And I can see there's a visual way of building my query. So if you're not familiar with the Power Query Editor, you can start with the visual tools, and then you can graduate to building more complex queries. So when I'm building a report in Excel with this in a chart, I don't need all of the columns. I might only need 5 or 6 columns. So I want to select my columns here in my query before downloading it to Excel. Otherwise, it's going to be a very heavy report, and it's going to slow down. It's going to cause some performance issues if there's too many of these things running, if they're inefficient. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose my columns. Okay, so here's all the columns in this particular table. So you can see those are all the columns. Okay. And some of these columns are also references to other columns in other tables. Okay. And we'll do a different discussion about how to include those relationships as well. But let's just do a straight query here. I don't need all the columns here, so I'm just going to unselect the columns, and I'm just going to choose the ones that I want. I want the defect ID, obviously. I want the defect title, the status, priority, the owner, maybe some user-defined fields, detected by user, who detected it, and what else would I might need? I might need a description. That's okay. Not usually for reporting if I'm just tracking progress. The description really isn't necessary, but it depends on what you want in your query. When you do Power BI, you may want to bring in the description so that you can drill down and actually see more information about the defect directly in the report. But for now, we'll stick with just these. So what happens is that it applies those column settings, and now I have a much more refined query here. Now you can see, as I said before, there is a record column. Okay, so it's not a database column, it's a reference to another table. I'm going to remove it for now, and we'll come back to it in the next example here, because I don't want to confuse the issues. I'll just kind of take that column out just by editing my step. Oh, actually, you know what? I took the wrong one in. Sorry, I want the owner, but the detected in user, I think that's the one that was the record reference. So I'm just going to take that out for now. So we have a very simple 4-column query. We might, take the name out, might take the, whatever we need. But basically, depending on what we want to graph, we may or may not need all the data. Obviously, you want to take the minimum amount of data for performance reasons, so you have a very efficient query. Now, if I want to, let's say, filter out priorities or something like that, I can do it in two places. I can do it either in the query, or I can do it in the spreadsheet once all the data's come down. It's better to do it in the query if you know that you want to restrict that, because again, it'll make your query much more efficient. Otherwise, you're going to get all the defects rather than just the ones that you're querying for. So let's say we want to only get the high priority defects. So let's going to add a filter to that. And this works just like Excel, right? So you can just say, I want high, very high, or urgent. I just want those defects. Okay. So you get these sequences here. And you can also, if you want to see the query behind it, you can click on the advanced editor and you can see the steps that are represented here in the visual table. We will visit this advanced editor in more detail later on when we want to do some more calculations on columns and things like that. But for now, I want to keep it simple, and I want to just kind of apply this simple query and bring that data to Excel. So I'm just going to hit close and load, which basically closes the editor and loads or fetches the data from ALM. And there you go. You have now created a query that gets defects from ALM. But sometimes you want a visualization. So let's do that next. So to do that, we're going to do the well-known pivot table, pivot chart kind of idea. So I'm going to insert a pivot chart off of this table. And now I simply choose my columns. So I'm going to drop the ID into the values area. Okay. I'm going to do owner, and I'm going to do, let's say, status, right? And again, you can change your visualization, your chart type, for example, or we can do something like this. We can say we want priority, and let's say we want to change our chart type to be a little bit more stacked like this. So that's probably a little bit better. So there you go. So in a few steps, you've been able to create a report in Excel using the OData API. So the advantage here is that you can do this yourself without having to need a lot of knowledge about ALM. So it's an alternative to the ALM business views. But this opens up a lot of possibilities now by being able to consume the data from ALM as you wish directly in your reporting tool of choice. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video. We'll be building on what we've shown you here.